Alien girl disrespects human guests now. She can't sit without blushing the crystalline towers of Zephyria. Prime gleamed under the binary suns as Ambassador Elena Vasquez stepped off the diplomatic shuttle. Her boots clicked against the polished stone of the landing pad, each step measured and confident despite the gravity being 20% heavier than Earth's standard. She had trained for months for this moment, humanity's first formal diplomatic exchange with the Zephyrian collective. Standing before the ornate entrance to the council chambers was her assigned liaison, a young Zephyrian named Lyrith. The alien's iridescent blue skin shifted with subtle patterns that Elena had studied meant curiosity mixed with disdain. Lyrith's forearms were crossed in what Elena recognized as the Zephyrian equivalent of rolling one's eyes. "So, Lyrith," said in perfect standard galactic, her voice carrying the melodic tones typical of her species. "The humans finally decided to send someone. How ... quaint." Elena smiled politely, her diplomatic training kicking in. "Thank you for hosting me, Liaison Lyrith. I look forward to learning about your remarkable civilization." Lyrith's skin patterns shifted to what Elena's briefings had indicated was smugness. "Yes, well, I suppose even primitive species have their curiosities. Come along then, try not to touch anything important." As they walked through the corridors lined with living crystal formations that hummed with soft music, Lyrith kept up a steady stream of condescending commentary. "Of course, you wouldn't understand the harmonic resonance principles behind our architecture. Your species is still using crude metal and stone, aren't you?" Elena nodded thoughtfully. "We do use various materials, yes. Each has its own advantages, depending on the application. How ... Rustic," Lyrith replied, her patterns now swirling with what Elena recognized as amusement at her own wit. "I do hope you won't be too overwhelmed by our technology. We've had visitors from lesser species faint before." They entered a vast chamber where other Zephyrians glided about their business, their forms graceful and their technology seamlessly integrated into their daily lives. Lyrith gestured dismissively at Elena's simple diplomatic attire. "I notice humans dress so plainly. No doubt your species lacks the sophistication for proper aesthetic expression." She touched her own flowing garments that seemed to shift color with her movements. "These robes are woven from crystallized starlight, naturally. Something beyond your people's capabilities." Elena examined the robes with genuine interest. "They're beautiful. The photonic integration is quite clever, similar to some fiber optic principles we use, but with a much more elegant application." Lyrith's patterns flickered with surprise before quickly returning the condescension. "Oh, you have some rudimentary understanding of light manipulation? How ... adorable." As they continued the tour, Lyrith's commentary grew increasingly patronizing. She pointed out art that humans wouldn't understand, technology that was beyond human comprehension, and cultural nuances that were too sophisticated for your species. Elena listened patiently, occasionally asking technical questions that seemed to catch Lyrith off guard with their depth and insight. When they reached the council chamber's central hub, Lyrith gestured to a complex holographic display showing star maps and mathematical equations. "This is our stellar navigation system," Lyrith said with pride. "It calculates hyperspace routes using 17-dimensional matrices. I don't expect you to understand it, of course." Elena studied the display intently, her eyes tracking the complex calculations. After a moment, she frowned slightly. "I noticed there's an error in the quantum flux calculations for Sector 7G. The resonance frequency is off by approximately 2.7%. Lyrith's skin patterns went completely still. Something Elena had learned indicated shock. That's impossible. Our systems are perfect. May I?" Elena gestured toward the control interface. Lyrith, too stunned to refuse, nodded. Mutely, Elena's fingers moved across the holographic controls with surprising dexterity. Her background in theoretical physics and her doctorate in xenotechnology served her well as she made subtle adjustments to the calculations. The display flickered, recalculated, and then showed a more efficient route through hyperspace. There, Elena said simply. That should improve your travel time by about 15% while reducing energy consumption. Lyrith stared at the corrected display, her skin cycling through patterns Elena had never seen before. What she would later learn indicated profound embarrassment mixed with grudging respect. How did you ... Lyrith began, then stopped. Elena smiled gently. My species may seem primitive to you, but we've learned to be quite resourceful. We didn't inherit a perfect world like yours. We had to build everything from scratch, often with limited resources. Over the following days, as Elena continued her diplomatic mission, word spread throughout the Zephyrian collective about the human who had improved their navigation systems. But more than that, Elena's patient responses to Lyrith's initial rudeness had shown a kind of dignity that impressed the normally proud Zephyrians. Lyrith found herself seeking out Elena's company, no longer to mock but to learn. Every interaction left her more aware of how wrong her initial assumptions had been. When Elena saw the resource allocation problem that had puzzled Zephyrian economists for months, Lyrith's embarrassment deepened. Why don't you mock me in? Return? Lyrith asked one evening as they watched the binary sunset from the chamber's observation deck. I was incredibly rude to you. Elena considered this. Where I come from, we have a saying, the best revenge is massive success. But I prefer to think of it as the best response to ignorance is patient education. Lyrith's skin flushed with deeper patterns of shame. I made so many assumptions about your species, about you. And now you know better, Elena replied. That's what diplomacy is really about, building understanding where there was none before. As Elena's mission concluded successfully, with new trade agreements and cultural exchange programs established, Lyrith found herself changed. Every time she sat in the council chambers and saw the improved stellar navigation display, every time she passed the resource allocation terminals running Elena's elegant algorithms, she felt a warm flush of embarrassment mixed with something else, respect. The human had taught her that true sophistication wasn't about superior technology or inherited advantages. It was about how one responded to challenges, how one treated others, and how one chose to build bridges instead of walls. Months later, when Lyrith was selected to be part of the exchange program to Earth, she packed her bags with eager anticipation rather than condescending curiosity. She had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their resources, it was their character. And every time she thought about her initial behavior toward Elena, she couldn't help but blush with the memory of her own foolishness. An admiration for the grace with which the human ambassador had handled it all